Though the facts clearly show that the modern Republican Party is, for the most part, an anti-American authoritarian death cult of personality loyal to Donald Trump with no limiting principle and no talent for or interest in responsible governance, occasionally an elected Republican dares to break ranks and defy the dear leader. And one such example is Republican Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, who made the tragic mistake in MAGA world of publicly endorsing Ron DeSantis. But here's what's interesting. Unlike pretty much every other conservative and Republican in existence, including DeSantis himself, when Donald Trump called out Chip Roy publicly fired back. And it's glorious. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, I've got several clips to play. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've said it before and I'll say it again. A Republican Party which fights among itself, the MAGA Civil War, that's a weakened Republican Party. And generally speaking, in today's political climate, a weakened Republican Party makes for a stronger America. Now, you might be asking, who the hell is Chip Roy? Well, Chip Roy is the guy who Marjorie Taylor Greene once famously called Colonel Sanders during a Twitter beef, and he does look like one of the B villains in Django Unchained. But he's also the guy who went viral for this moment.
One thing. I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, one, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One.
It's a guy who knows that his party sucks and, again, has no talent for responsible governance. Now, again, he made a faux pas recently, which is he publicly endorsed Ron DeSantis. Actually, he did that months ago, but then he went out on the campaign stump for him. This is Chip Roy speaking on Ron DeSantis' behalf as an endorsement in Iowa.
And I am here for a very specific purpose, and it is to encourage those of you who have not already decided to support Ron DeSantis as the nominee for the Republican Party. And there's a simple reason why. He does what he says he will do. He delivers like no one else I've ever seen. I've worked for a lot of good folks. I'm not going to go through the list. I've worked around a lot of good folks, but I've never seen anybody who is more committed to advancing conservative principles, standing up for his country, and delivering than Governor Ron DeSantis has been in Florida.
So listen, obviously Ron DeSantis is as pure evil as any conservative Republican elected official can get, but that's his rationale, and it's a rationale echoed by many DeSantis supporters. So in response, Donald Trump got on Truth Social and said, has any smart and energetic Republican in the great state of Texas decided to run in the primary against Rhino Congressman Chip Roy? For the right person, he is very beatable. If interested, let me know. Okay, now that's incredibly petty. And before I get to why it's funny, I just want to remind you, Chip Roy voted with Donald Trump when Donald Trump was in office 90% of the time. That's pretty big. It's about what Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan, two staunch MAGA cultists, that's how they voted, okay? So he's pretty high in the MAGA world, okay, in terms of his vote. Since President Biden's been in office, Chip Roy, unlike Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Clay Higgins, Bob Good, Van Taylor, Chip Roy scored a perfect 0. He voted with President Biden 0% of the time. That doesn't sound rhino to me. That sounds pretty dedicated to the conservative cause, as terrible as that is. And by the way, it just goes to show you that Chip Roy is terrible. He's a terrible person, right? Now, what's hilarious about all of that is that matters nothing to Trump. Trump doesn't care about that at all. Trump has no memory, no recollection, no conception of a history of loyalty and somebody who could disagree with him in good faith. He's proven that time and time again. Nor does his cult. It doesn't matter if you had a 100% pro-Trump record when you're in Congress. If you criticize this man for any damn reason, you're on the naughty list, okay? What's hilarious about this is that they missed the deadline to challenge Chip Roy, even if they wanted to. Trump is seemingly seeking to primary Chip Roy, but the filing deadline has passed. He's going to be unchallenged in his March 5th primary, which is just... it's just so funny. I mean, Trump and his MAGA cultists have no conception of how politics actually works in terms of like the procedure and administration, which is why they're generally terrible at it. In response, Ron DeSantis said, while Chip Roy is fighting to do what Donald Trump promised to do, secure our southern border, The former president is on social media demanding a primary challenge to one of the most conservative members of Congress, even though the Texas primary filing deadline was over a week ago. I stand with Chip and am honored to have his support. The time for talking is over. We must stop the invasion, and I will get it done. Again, just further proof that Ron DeSantis and Chip Roy are both terrible. But not only is Trump stepping on a rake hilarious, what's hilarious too and fascinating is that Chip Roy is one of the very few, perhaps the only one I can immediately think of offhand, other than, of course, somebody like Mitt Romney, to publicly fire back at Donald Trump, pretty much without hesitation.
Just at multiple events with Ron DeSantis, where he's shaking their hands and looking them in the eye, while Donald Trump hangs out in his basement in Florida, afraid to actually debate. What's he afraid of? Look, I'm happy to debate him if he wants to anywhere. I'm just a little old congressman. Why won't he debate Ron DeSantis or any of the other candidates? I think he should.
Why do you think he won't get on the debate stage with the other Republicans?
Well, I can tell you from Ron DeSantis' perspective is because he would clean his clock. If you compare the records, they're not comparable. Ron DeSantis has done a phenomenal job in Florida. He stood up to the tyrannical machine of the government when it shut down the greatest economy in the history of the world. We've racked up $6 to $8 trillion of debt since then as a result of the mismanagement that started in that last year of the Trump administration. President Trump also failed to actually fully secure the border. If we'd gotten the policies in place, if he had worked with conservatives to get bills passed in 2018-19, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now, where Joe Biden is leaving Texas fully exposed to have people running over our Border Patrol agents and our DPS. We had 6 kids in the district I live in, Caitlin, 6 kids who died from fentanyl poisoning last year. 300,000 apprehensions in November, on track for 300,000 in December. We should have stopped this years ago. President Trump could have done that if he would have led Congress to get something done. That didn't happen. I don't think he wants to debate that record. I don't think he wants to go, through every single issue that he's been a part of. And he knows that Governor DeSantis has done a phenomenal job in Florida. So,
oof, ouch. Again, very rare for a Republican elected official to break with the cult, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were consequences from this as a result. Obviously not this election cycle, because Chip Roy is going to run unopposed in the primary, but maybe, who knows, maybe enough irrational, fed-up Republicans will say, you're too disloyal to Donald Trump, I just might as well vote for, or gosh darn, they're Democrat. And maybe they will. I don't know, but I find it fascinating. And it'll be interesting to see once Congress returns in 2024, if any of the Trump loyalists start to give Chip Roy the cold shoulder, or if it reignites the tension between Chip Roy and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Anyway, interesting stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.